Welcome to another exciting edition of Million Dollar Peddlers. I'm Paperboy.
And I'm Mr. Magazine.
And to all the new subscribers coming aboard, we thank you very much. Wanted to let you know that I'm Paperboy, and I have over 40,000 items on eBay and Amazon, and one-man band working out of my basement.
I'm Mr. Magazine. I have about 500,000 items listed on eBay and Amazon with 15 employees.
So hopefully you see some stuff in here that'll help you. And today we're going to talk about, what's that in the background there?
Looks like a credit card.
I got to tell a quick funny story. Random neighborhood kid helps us out picking up the backgrounds, and he goes, "Well, that's a debit card." I said, "Yes." Everybody's really going to look at it and go, "Oh my God, it's a debit card." They're really screwing up their video.
Exactly.
But basically, we're talking today about credit. Now, obviously, you don't want to go into debt. Generally speaking, debt is not the best of all things. However, debt does have its advantages as well, in that it can let you lift above your weight. In other words, if I have $100 in my pocket, how much, generally speaking, worth of stuff can I buy?
Your buying power is about $100.
About $100, exactly. Buying power. Well, look at you.
Yes.
It's like you're taking courses and you know what you're talking about there.
Sure.
If I go into a store and I have a $1,000 credit limit on my credit card, I have $1,000 plus the $100 in my pocket. I have $1,100 worth of buying power. I know that you have used credit in a couple of different manners. You've used credit to help you work with some deals.
Sure.
I know the Ohio deal, you did it kind of a different way. You didn't exactly borrow money, but what did you do to be able to finance the Ohio deal?
Originally, I worked the deal out with the guy through word of mouth, because I did this with another gentleman that he knew that, my credit's good. Trust this guy. I gave him a chunk down. So if it was a $100,000 deal, I gave him $20,000 or $25,000 down, and then so many payments over the next 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Right. And how much was the overall deal?
The Ohio deal was $100,000. No, I'm sorry, it was more than that. It was $150,000.
$150,000. Right. And not a lot of people out there. God bless you if you do, but not a lot of people have access to $150,000 readily available to them. So that's one thing that you can do on a larger deal, is especially if you're established and you're built up in the area and all that sort of thing, where you had the advantage that you did a deal with somebody else that he knew, and you paid him off, obviously, and there weren't any issues whatsoever. One thing which both deals required, which absolutely 100% agree with, notarized contract. They did absolutely sign a contract, write one up, went to the bank, had it notarized, and all that sort of thing. So that way they have some kind of recourse, as opposed to you saying, "Oh yeah, I'm good for it." I mean, nobody's going to allow that, obviously.
Sure.
And what got me thinking about this is I did a deal. It was not the best of all deals that I've ever done, but I'm still making money off of it. I don't know if you recall or not, but you turned me onto a deal 2014. And the reason I know this is because I used the cents in my listings. So I listed the items in 2014 from this deal, and it was a lot of trade paperbacks. And we went over to the gentleman's house and purchased the trade paperbacks, et cetera, et cetera. And I forget what I spent, around $2,000, some ballpark like that. And at the time, 2014, I didn't necessarily have $2,000 sitting around to spend on it. So do you recall how I paid for it?
Well, if it was 2019, I probably wouldn't remember that. So if it's 2016, I'm going to say no.
Oh, it's 2014. So you don't even remember I said 2014.
The memory's gone. Short term, long term.
At that time, I had a home equity line of credit available to me. I had a checkbook, essentially, that I could write checks out, and it would go against my home equity. And because of that, I was able to purchase the deal. And again, it wasn't the greatest of all deals, but I made my money back out of it by the end of the year, was able to pay it off. And, last week I sold a book out of there for, I think I made $2 or $3 off of it. So it's still paying for itself, this deal was.
Sure.
But I would not have been able to do the deal otherwise, because I didn't have $2,000 sitting around. So that's a tremendous advantage. And another deal that I did, and I do not recall what it was for, but we're dealing back in 2010, 2011. It was a fairly expensive deal for me at the time. And when I say fairly expensive, it might have been a $1,000 deal, something like that. I went to the bank and used my credit card and got a cash advance.
Okay.
And so essentially I borrowed money from the credit card with a cash advance, so I had cash on hand to buy this deal. I know you've worked credit many different times. I know you've got bank loans out.
Yeah.
You've also got some kind of an equity line with the properties that you can use and tap if you need to.
Sure.
And I know there's yet another way that you've another line that you've tapped into.
You referring to my friends and family accounts?
Yeah, I'm referring to that $40 you owe me from the other day.
All right. Well, that'd be a friends and business account.
But Mysterious Benefactor, I know, has come through a number of times with various deals as well as other people.
Yeah.
Why don't you go real quick into how that ends up working?
Mysterious Benefactor.
Or any other friends that may lend you money.
I've used banks over the years, and banks are great. They'll help me out. They're a little tougher than they used to be, but they might give me $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, which is good for small short-term deals. But then when you're talking $100,000, $150,000, well, the banks aren't going to give me that.
Well, and here's the other thing too. They may give it to you, but what time on a lot of these deals, what time limit are we working within versus what time limit are the banks working within?
Well, the banks want it back a lot quicker than I'm willing to pay it back.
Well, not even that necessarily. You're right on that too. You can work with your friends on the terms.
Sure.
But I'm not even mentioning that. I'm mentioning I've got a $50,000 collection I want to sell you.
Right. I'm
selling it because I need the money, because I'm moving out of state, whatever the reason is.
Yeah.
What is, generally speaking, the turnaround time for a bank on a $50,000 loan for you? It's not a weekend.
No, they would probably want it 3, 4, 5 years. I would think they would want.
Well, no, I don't mean before they give you the money.
Oh, the whole process.
Yeah.
The process, the application and underwriting. It could take a month or more even.
Yeah, and you've got the paperwork all filled out. Right. You give it to them, and then they say, "Oh, we need this other piece. We need this other piece." I mean, you could be talking 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and if I'm coming to you to sell something or other because I'm moving out of state, or I'm coming to you because my daughter's tuition is coming due, or whatever the reason happens to be, I don't have 5 weeks, 6 weeks to wait.
Yeah, you'll lose the deal to someone else that has the cash on hand that doesn't need to wait. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and so that's one of the advantages of it. It's amazing how having some capital can open so many deals up to you. And nothing against anybody. I tend to do a lot of things at the flea market, but when I look around the flea market, there are a lot of people out there that are completely nickel and diming everything, and they want to go cheap on everything. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons why when I see somebody at the flea market with a fair amount of decent stuff, I'll ask them how much for everything. Yeah. And they're absolutely amazed, like, everything? And I'm like, yes, I'll take everything you've got here. You've got 200 magazines. I'm interested in all 200 of them. I'll take them all off your hands right now. Right. Because they're so used to asking, $2 a piece, and people coming up and nickel and diming them and saying, well, if I take 3 of them, can I have them for $4? If I take 4, I don't want to play that. I'll just take all of them. You get the money in your hand, and I'm gone.
Why not?
So it definitely gives you a tremendous advantage having some level of capital. And don't be discouraged. I mean, he did a $150,000 deal. It's all relative. If you were to have that $150,000 that you had available, and you went to somebody who regularly consigns to Sotheby's, you're nothing. You've got nothing. You're a minnow. That $150,000 is nothing.
It's chump change. It's the frame on an art piece.
Exactly. Whereas $150,000 at a local flea market, you might possibly be able to buy all the inventory.
Yeah.
So it comes down to, yes, you've worked that big deal. You did well on that big deal, but that's a small deal compared to some of the other deals that are out there.
Right.
I mean, there are $1 million deals. There are $5 million deals. There are $1,000 deals. I think probably the biggest deal I've ever done is $6,000. And I've been doing this 20 some years, and I have a day job. Mm-hmm. So, and I was able to do so just because I've got some money put aside and some money I could borrow. And, you do what you have to do. The deal's coming along. You make minimum payments on your credit card for a month or two as you're saving your money up, whatever the case happens to be.
Yeah.
So don't be discouraged that we're talking about a $150,000 deal for him. You might have a $1,500 deal, and that might be all the money in the world to you. I know back in the day that $2,000 was all the money in the world to me, and I had to use the line of credit in order to do it. But I'm still reaping profits off of it. Another perfect example of using credit is back in the day, I used to go to auctions all the time, and I tried not to use credit cards because it was 10% buyer's premium, 12% if you used a credit card.
Right.
So I went out of my way to always try to use a check because that 2% makes a difference.
Sure.
But there were times where I liked having the credit card in my pocket because I would look at it and I would say, I've got $500 available to spend at this.
Right.
But that doesn't mean if it's a good deal and I spend $600, I don't want to not be able to spend $600 if it's a good deal.
Yeah.
And so having that extra money available, or there were times before where there were 3 auctions in a week. Well, if I spend $200 at the first auction and $200 at the second auction, I have $100 left over for the last auction, which if it's got a lot of good stuff,
Right.
what can I do? Hey, that's $1,000 item, and the bidding's at $105 and I can't bid on it. So having the credit available, don't use it unless you need to use it, but having it available to you, the extra capital will definitely do you well. Make sure you have your ATM so you can get extra cash if you need to. A lot of people at the flea markets will not take it. Will not take credit cards and all that sort of thing.
Right.
Have cash available, kind of know where you're going to as well. If you're going to garage sales, odds are a lot of people at garage sales are not going to take credit cards.
Right.
If you're going to an auction, go online and you're an estate sale, go online and take a quick look at the terms. And one thing that I do all the time as well is if it looks like it's going to be a really, really good day of sales, as much as I don't want to use the credit card, if I go to somewhere early and spend a fair amount of money and have the credit card, I might use the credit card because that way, if I'm going out there with $500 and the first place I go to accepts the credit card, but I spend $300, that leaves me $200 when I go to the church sales and the other sales throughout the day that will not take the credit card.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of structure things that way, but don't be afraid to borrow if it's a good deal. The biggest key I would say is either work out longer terms like you've worked out with people, or do the type situation where you earmark the money coming in to pay it off, because the last thing you want to do is be paying interest on it.
Right.
Sometimes you can't help but do it. I mean, obviously, if a deal came along and it's a $10,000 deal and I have to use my credit card for it, odds are I'm not going to be able to get $10,000 back out of it by the end of the month. If I can, God bless me. But earmark the money, keep track of it on paper, and okay, I'm paying $1,000 this month off of it. I'm paying $1,000 this month off of it out of the money it's generating.
Right. Yeah.
So hopefully that helps you some. Again, don't borrow just to borrow, but it does allow you to purchase collections that you otherwise would not be able to do. And hopefully that helps you some. Do hit the like button. Do comment down below if you have any comments about the video. Hopefully this helps you some. And subscribe if you haven't done it so already. And we'll see you next video.
Take care. Bye-bye.